I want to do a deep dive on aquarium dwarf hairgrass and trying to get it to carpet without CO2 in your aquarium. I mean, after all, aquarium dwarf hairgrass is said to be the easiest carpeting plant without CO2 in the hobby. And I wanted to test this. I love experimenting and figuring out things like this on my own with just tons and tons of testing. So if you're trying to get the dwarf hairgrass to kind of carpet out in your aquarium and spread across the substrate in a horizontal manner, they say that you should be picking this stuff apart into small little clumps about the size of a quarter, maybe do a $50 size, and plant them a couple inches apart. And I gotta say, that seems a little weird because I look at this big bulk of hairgrass and it seems healthy, it's green, it's lively, and here I'm gonna just pick this apart. I do know the science behind propagating plants, and when they kind of like feel destroyed or hurt, they kind of go into like a defense mechanism and they grow at twice the rate. So I totally get it. So here's the thing. When it comes to planting the dwarf hairgrass and trying to get this stuff to carpet without CO2, like I said, you want small little clumps and you want to spread them out in your aquarium. I will admit I really didn't like the idea of that. So, and I like aquascape tanks. This is my entertainment center build. It's surrounded by a TV. If you haven't seen it, it's a sick build. So what we did was we kind of just bulked this stuff up next to a rock and just planted it. Tried to make it look natural as if it were to grow in natural habitat like this. And we put it in a super nutrient-rich substrate, potting soil, capped with black sand, so you couldn't get any more nutrients of a substrate than potting soil itself because the stuff is just stacked full of nutrients. And hairgrass is a root feeder. This stuff feeds heavily from the roots. So the two key aspects are going to be a nutrient-rich substrate because it feeds heavily from the roots, and second, the amount of light. I'm a little nervous on this one because I'm a low-tech guy. I don't have any CO2. I barely have any highlights even. So, I have over 50 tanks, and I truly believe in cheap Amazon LEDs. We're talking Haiger, Nikru, Mingdak, the cheapest of the cheapest, even shop lights. So nothing in my house is pretty much high-tech. I don't even have a CO2 system. So this is a true test. If you are trying to carpet dwarf hairgrass without CO2, like, this is the ideal setup. Maybe you have an aqua soil. So yeah, we got the dwarf hairgrass planted in the entertainment center build. It's a 20-gallon tall. It is a potting soil capped with sand. It has a medium to low light. So here we are, fast forward 2 to 3 months. You can see the dwarf hairgrass is in that bottom tank down here. Isn't this entertainment center build just sick? Look at the kitty there, Teddy. So here is the dwarf hairgrass. Here, I'll point to it. This is it right here. So 2 to 3 months, we don't have tons of growth, but I sort of knew this was going to be a slow growing carpeting plant. I'll be honest, it was sort of a letdown because I thought the dwarf hairgrass was really going to take off in the potting soil, because I find that a lot of these plants really just explode in growth in the potting soil, and it's kind of like a hack. But this plant didn't take off. And I think it didn't help that some of the floating plants in the Valsnaria are kind of stealing all my light. So I think it's a big deal to have adequate amounts of light. Gosh, these dang kitties, they're just always here. Glorified animal hoarding at its best. So there's a couple things here, guys, that we can do to kind of stimulate the growth. What I'm going to do is trim back this dwarf hairgrass, because when I go to cut the dwarf hairgrass, as you know, when you propagate aquarium plants, it kind of goes into defense mode and they grow like twice as fast. Yo, bro, can you not do that right now? I'm doing a video. So if I'm being completely honest, this experiment to get the dwarf hairgrass to carpet in this aquarium with no CO2 isn't going great. But I feel like this is valuable information for you guys to know. So what I'm going to do here moving forward to get this dwarf hairgrass to grow better is I'm going to trim it. So what's sort of weird about this plant is that it naturally wants to grow up, but when you trim it, that's when it's going to go side to side. It's almost like the propagation like wakes up its defense mechanism and it starts to carpet, and it starts to like throw runners to the sides, which creates carpeting effect. So moving forward with this experiment of trying to get dwarf hairgrass to carpet, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be trimming this plant more often. I'm going to propagate it so that it grows side to side more and the defense mechanism kicks in. And I'm also going to be adamant about trying to get the plant more lighting. In that tank, there's a bunch of Valsnaria. As you guys know, that grows up over the surface. It kind of hogs the lighting. There's floating plants in there. The duckweed steals all the UV. Essentially, I need more light on that tank, or maybe I even put a higher lighting unit on there. I have upgraded units. So I guess moving forward, guys, My consensus on aquarium dwarf hairgrass and getting it to carpet without CO2, it's not as easy as it looks. I gave it potting soil, which might be arguably the best top tier nutrient rich substrate there is, and it's still not doing the greatest. I would say if you're going to do this, use fluval stratum or an aqua soil and have a medium to high lighting. That's my advice moving forward, and trim the heck out of this plant.